Hello, my friends, and welcome to Living Light. You are all in for a huge treat and a very, very profound conversation. My guest today is Dr. Randy Michaux. Dr. Randy's been in the functional medicine game for many, many years. He's also been someone who has innovated in practice and also innovated himself, which we're going to unpack today. He spent many years working with clients, helping them get to the root cause of their chronic health challenges. People fly in from all over the world to go and see him because he can assess very quickly what's going on and help you get to the foundation and to the root of the problem so you can feel better once and for all. Without further ado, Randy, thank you for joining me today.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. I've always enjoyed our conversations, and I know this one is going to be action packed with information and knowledge. And, if we get to it, I'm sure we will. I'd love to learn a little bit more about what you're up to these days and how you're unpacking life.
Yeah.
It's going to be a fun ride. But before we dive too deep into that, why don't we start off with your origin story? What made you the chiropractor you are today?
Well, the reason I got into chiropractic was my mom, kind of just like not forcing, but using that pressure to say, go see my chiropractor. And I was, I guess I was open to it because I went and watched him for a while, thought, that's cool. And then I asked him, what would you do for my shoulder? He looked at it, told me I had a neck problem, not a shoulder problem. I didn't believe him, but I asked him, okay, what are you going to do to like fix it? It's kind of a jerk, honestly, the way that I came across. But I asked him, like, what would you do? And he said, I need to adjust you. And, sometimes you have that miracle adjustment where I think it was a divine thing, honestly. Like I was making a huge pivot in my life to do this, not knowingly. And he adjusted me. And after years of physical therapy, years of trying to rehab, I felt like I was the bionic man with my shoulder. Like it was amazing. And so we had a short conversation, and he said, you could really impact a lot of people with who you are and being able to do this work. And that hit resounded with me, was so like it just hit me. And I'm like, you're right. And on the spot, I decided I'm going to chiropractic school, came home, shared that with my wife. Her family was kind of distraught about that. Um, but I moved forward with it. That was one of the few decisions in my life, and we can talk about this later, where it wasn't about fear. It was, this is what I want to do 100%. And did everything necessary, stayed in school longer, did all the prereqs. But I think what made me the type of practitioner I was I love people. And I've always had a heart for people. I like getting to know what makes them tick, why they do what they do. And so listening has always been something that I've done. And I think maybe sometimes this was to my detriment in practice because I would end up spending a lot of time with a person. I was there, but that creates backups. But for me, it didn't matter. Like if there was something that needed to happen, it's like we're going to completion. And I love that aspect of it. And I found that people, when I finally became open to doing that, I found people were getting better
Hmm.
sooner, faster, and so loved that practice. And then my dad passed away, and that changed. That like rocked my world. We didn't have a great relationship. Actually, we had no relationship really at the time. That
Hmm.
kind of changes everything when you get a diagnosis of cancer. Really started to make amends, but recognized there were a lot of things I didn't like about myself. And I would say this was really the beginning of diving into thinking I had to fix me, but it was more, as I look back, it was, no, you need to uncover the hurt parts. You need to uncover the trauma in your own life, which I denied for a long time. And it made me more compassionate, more empathetic, and then eventually caused me to move out here to Idaho from Virginia and start working with Todd Watts because I wanted to move into that foundational medicine space. And that was That was about 7 years ago now. And it's been a beautiful journey filled with ups and downs, as we all have, and a lot of insecurity, a lot of fear. But it's amazing how love drives you forward in the midst of fear and uncertainty and sometimes despair.
I hear you. You know what? Thank you for sharing. One of the things that I really love about you is you're very energetically present. I still remember the first time we had lunch, like it was yesterday, and just how how available you were from a spiritual and emotional standpoint. It still stands out to me as one of my favorite conversations. So I
Thank
can
you.
definitely attest to why people spending more time with you would feel better. Aside from, you know, obviously the work that you're doing on them physically and what you're uncovering, helping them get to the root cause of what's causing their ailment. But I think many of us come to this realization eventually is that you are, as a healer, the medicine. So if you are doing the work on yourself, people just being in your presence heals them in ways that I can't necessarily explain, except having experienced it myself. You know, some people can be energy vampires. So the more time you
Mhm.
spend around them, the more they drain your battery. And some people can be energy uplifters, right? Where they recharge your battery. So you're kind of plugged into their energy in a way that is rejuvenative for the person who's receiving it. So thank you for doing the work on yourself, because that's ultimately where it starts, right? Is having that self awareness. Sometimes we come to the self awareness in very difficult and challenging times. That's oftentimes where I've created or, you know, had the most self awareness of myself,
Right.
because we see how we react and respond. And especially when you're dealing with, you know, something like an illness that your father is going through, where perhaps you know the timeline is limited, there's things that need to be said or things that need to be done or unsaid or undone. And it's really a great way for us to show up for our family, but also more importantly for ourselves, not in that just in that present moment, but for our future selves as well.
For sure. And you know, and it's so interesting as you say that. Um, I didn't, I was forced to confront a lot of stuff because of that diagnosis with cancer. And
Mm,
I honestly thought that him passing away, I was like, finally, like, thank goodness it's done. And I mean, that's how bad it was. And then began to realize, oh no, it's not done. Now the pain really sets in. And there was a period of numbness for probably 6 months. And it
mm,
wasn't until, you know, you kind of see financials with business and you're like, oh my gosh, what's happened? I didn't even realize what was going on. Had really distanced myself from my family, um, and had to come to grips with there's a lot of pain inside of you. And I didn't know what to do about it. I didn't
mm,
know how to handle it. I didn't know where to go with it. Fortunately, I didn't turn to like drugs or things. Um, but I distanced myself from a lot of people, and it was wonderful people in my life that saw what was happening and never stopped reaching out. And when I was finally ready to say I need help, they were there with open arms. And it
mm.
was like, wow, there's so much love. So many people are just there and open, ready to help, and yet we can isolate ourselves so much when it comes to thinking we're the only ones or no one will care or no one wants to listen. I don't find that to be the case. At least in my life, I've just had good people that have really been there to help move me through that. And like you were one of those when you talk about that lunch, that was so healing to me to know, wow, someone's listening. They want to hear what I'm going through and they're not telling me what to do. It was like this intuitive, just, hey, I'm just going to let this guy talk and he's going to figure things out. And maybe I can provide some direction, but like I'm not going to tell him what to do. And that's been so appreciative and sometimes maddening, like just tell me what to do. But but that's not how it works. Like we need to figure it out for ourselves and we need to have good people supporting and helping to guide and mirror and reflect. And that's a lot of what I've had, which has been enormous.
Amazing. Amazing. I remember our conversation. We talked a lot about your family and how important they are to you. And being able to spend more time with them. And so, just so the listeners know that this is one of your highest values is family. And sometimes our business can get in the way, if you will, right? To
Yeah.
spending more time with our family. And I say this seriously, but in jest as well, is that people don't pay me to do the work I do because I love it. And I know you love the work you do. You pay me to be away from my family. And so that's really how I position it in my head is because I share lots of stuff. I know you share lots of stuff. You've put on, big summits and shared millions of dollars worth of information for free. And at the end of the day, all we want to do is spend more time with our family, create a better life for them. And, our parents can be models for how to do it and how not to do it. And it's important for all of us to recognize our familial lineage, right? Where some of our emotional development has taken place. And I know people who are watching this are wondering, what does this have to do with health and metabolism and wellness and vitality? And here's what I've learned, and I think as we unpack this even more, people will learn is our emotional health is really the foundation of all of our health. I had a conversation with somebody and they're asking me all these questions about like how to improve their physical health. I'm like, well, the first thing we need to do is work on your headspace because if you got your headspace right, then you can help people in so many ways. If you got your physical health right, you can only help people physically,
Yeah.
right? So it's
Yeah.
your mind is so much more powerful because it transcends distance and time, right? You could help people in a whole different country if you've got your headspace right. And so we expand our presence by working on our mind first. And if we get the mind right, then the body, very quickly and very, lovingly follows suit. But if we just try to work on the body and we don't get the mind right, then we just fall back into our old patterns. And so we see this pattern. We used to see this pattern more when we didn't emphasize the importance of mental, emotional, spiritual health in our programs. And once we started incorporating that, we started to see some pretty amazing transformations taking place. So I know that
Yeah.
this is like a huge topic of interest for you. I know you're incorporating more of this into your practice. If you had to break it down as a percentage, uh, what percentage of people's issues that are coming in to see you with very chronic debilitating conditions, what percentage of those people do you think are struggling with some sort of mental, emotional, or spiritual challenge that's at the base of what they're dealing with?
I would say 90 to 100% of them. I
Mm,
mean, and that's no joke. It it astounds me how much people bury, how much
mm,
we want to distract. And we live in a place where we can distract ourselves. And years ago, like I had a coach, a mentor of mine that said, he says, I think that disease happens because people get so far off of what he called it, their life path unknowingly, because of fear, because of uncertainty. And then that health component starts to pick up where there's more challenges, maybe repetitive injuries, colds, but then it becomes more chronic. And he said, that's your body trying to tell you, you've got to get back on track. And yet we don't listen because we want the external things, or we think external things are going to help. And sometimes they do, right? When people are exposed to mold or they're exposed to toxins, absolutely. Like there can be external help. But in so many of these cases, the weakened immune system started, I really think, because of this misalignment with where we need to be going in life. And we don't even have the awareness that we're off that track. It's just what's happening. And yet, I think if we really take time, okay, I can only speak for me, the patients that I've worked with, but I'll speak for me. When I look back, I see where the misalignments happened, right?
mm,
And some of those I even see generationally now that I know more about our family history and lineage. And it's like, wow, like so much hurt, so much pain. You know that that trickled down through this energetic imprint to me, to my family, to my kids. And so we live life differently based on those things. And I think it is pulling us away from our soul. And as we
Mm,
start to realign that, it's like it's not comfortable, but there's more of a, oh man, I don't have to like work so hard at this. I don't have to like, I don't feel like I'm fighting against myself anymore.
mm,
And yeah, the physical things, there's still work to be done, but without the trauma component, the mental component, we don't truly heal. It's
mm.
temporary.
I totally agree. As you were sharing those percentage points, 90 to 100% of people are coming in with, something rooted in their emotional imbalance. And it's just really part of life, right? I mean, we all have something there. We may not realize it. But out of those 90 to 100% of people, how many of them are coming to you as their, hey, I know something's off with me emotionally. That's why I'm here. What percentage of people would you say that is?
Maybe 10 to 15.
Okay.
There's actually, what's interesting, you say that more are showing up as I think as I'm giving more space for this and changing my own energy, I'm seeing it more where people are saying, I know that I'll say the word broken. They may not say that, but I feel emotionally like I have nothing left. What am I supposed to do? And I have all this physical stuff as well. I don't know how to manage through it. And I have more of those people that are open about it coming, I think, because I am open and I'm sharing more of me just through my podcast and other ways. But in the past, sometimes it's like pulling teeth to get that out of people. And I've even asked people, hey, let's look at the emotional side of this. And I've had several women just tell me flat out, oh, no, we don't go there. I'm like, what do you mean you don't go there? And there's too much. I can't handle it. I don't know how to deal with it. And it's like, but this is the very thing keeping you from healing. So do you want to keep distracting yourself, or do you actually want to deal with it and start unpacking that in a safe, steady environment? Some of them are like, okay, I'm open, and others are no. And guys are even harder to crack. I mean,
Mm,
because I think the whole false masculinity of I have to be strong, powerful, I have to do all this stuff where it's like, man, you may be missing out on the most powerful part of yourself, which is this intuitive side, this creative side, but because of societal norms, you've completely buried that.
yeah, something can be broken and still strong,
Yeah.
right? But imagine it
Yeah.
being right, it'd be even stronger, right?
So
So,
true.
um, yeah, this is like a conversation that I wish I had had, 15 years ago, because as chiropractors, like we're really focused on the physical ailments our clients come in with, right? And then as functional medicine practitioners, which you and I are both are, we look at the biological and chemical components of their illnesses. And of course, there's merit to that because, yes, people can have toxicities, deficiencies, parasites, mold, as you described. But, once you address those things, some people still don't feel better, right? So they look better on paper. So their lab work looks better, their functional labs look better. They're doing all the right things from a physical and environmental standpoint. Maybe they've mitigated the issues, but there's still something about them that isn't resolved, right?
Yeah.
So having that, be the starting point of, the client's journey can be so profoundly important and life-changing for them. And I'm sure it would make all the other modalities work so much better because now the body is cooperating and not resisting anymore.
100%. And it's one of the reasons that I love the reset program is that it's focused on helping calm the nervous system.
Mm.
And and you began teaching me this years ago with breath, which yeah, sure, I breathe. But things came up with when you would lead a group at Eco or just other venues. And I remember doing that for the first time. This had to be 2.5 years ago, I think, on a recording that you had sent me. And I did that on a vacation, and it was like, oh my gosh, this was profound. Like it felt like immense love, and which is what I needed to feel was that I am loved, I'm surrounded by love. It is safe to be me. And yet I still like then I walked away from that and all the stuff comes back, didn't know what to do with it next. And so there was challenge, but when I talk about the breath, and you talk about this all the time, it is that steering wheel to the nervous system. It's calming it. And I just had a conversation with a good friend today, and we were talking about breath, and this is all new to him. And I'm like, dude, I hear you. It used to sound so like woo-woo and this like whatever, I'm just breathing. But it's so profound and so foundational to life and to healing. And that has opened up a lot of avenues for me to not just release energy. So I love doing like emotion code, body code. But my wife at one point, she was like, do we just release and get rid of all this energy, or do we actually need to process it? And that was a moment where I'm like, oh man, I kind of wish you didn't say that because now I can't unhear it. I can't
Mhm.
just do body code on myself and clear myself of all this trauma. I actually have to work through it. And doing that breath code session was like, or breath work session was like, wow, this actually moved things through me. And since that time, engaging in more of that and making more of a part of that of my lifestyle, it really opens up the ability to see more deeply into my own soul, but then it gives me the capacity to see others and to sit with that tension and not be so quick to try to fix it, but to reflect and mirror. And there can be discomfort in that, but that's where like healing happens. And that's really where the nervous system starts to calm and it's like, okay, it's actually okay in this environment to let these things percolate up in me, where I'm not going to be judged. I'm not going to, not going to try to fix me, even though sometimes like the tendency is still there to like, oh, well, if you do it, like, no, 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 just pause, reflect, mirror, and let them do their work because we can't do each other's work for us. No one's going to come save us. No one's going to come and like, you know, make the life that we want. It has to, we have to do it. But again, this guiding and gentle support is connection is what we need, is what we most desire.
Yeah, it's great insight. One of the things that I often share, which very much mirrors what you're sharing right now, is that the best coaches help us get the answer from within.
Mhm.
So, it's more of an intrinsic solution versus an extrinsic solution. Because when somebody else tells us what to do, right, that's based on, we have to then also assume they know 100% of the conversation that we're having in our head,
Right.
right? Because ultimately that's where the buck stops or starts. So if that person can hold space for us and reflect, and have a great conversation, a lot of times the answer is going to come from within. And when it's our own answer for ourselves, it's probably more aligned with the actual path that we need to be on.
100%. And it's so, I love that you say that because when those things do come from within, sometimes it can be uncertain, like, how am I going to do this? Like, what am I doing with that? But I think, again, as a coach, and as people have shared with me, if you've felt that movement within, then there's also a path that is there for you to walk into. Doesn't mean it's not uncertain or scary, but the path is there, and it's like your choice to embrace that. And I think this is again where that alignment comes into play. Do we have people in our lives that are there then to support us as we move in that? And yeah, we might stumble, we might fall, but as we're moving towards that alignment, like the doors start to open. And the light, I think there's more light that begins to emanate from us as we are doing that, more light from within, more light that is changing our vibrational state. And all of a sudden, it's like, wow, I'm moving through this life with less fear of what people are going to think, less fear of failure, and feel so much more congruent with
Hmm.
with what it is that I'm doing. And it's remarkable. And then you find that when you're adding all these other things to health, whether it's supplementation, diet, exercise, because the body's already in more alignment, it's better in that state to be able to heal. Where if you try to compartmentalize those two and say, well, I'll do this one later, or I'll wait until I'm ready for this, that there's still that misalignment, that incongruency, and your
Hmm.
cells, cells, are looking for connection, and that nervous system and the way that our mitochondria work, right? The energy, the powerhouse of the cells, um, like they need that regulation to work, and they need that regulation so that they can use the external stuff to actually help our health.
I love that. Dave Asprey, I heard him speak recently, and he was talking about his new book, Heavily Meditated, and right up your alley and my alley to check that book out. I actually have a copy. I need to start reading it. And one of the things he talked about is that fear actually takes up 9 times more energy than happiness does.
Oh, I totally
So
believe
it
that.
puts us if we're living in a constant state of fear, that could be why some people feel so tired. It may not be their food, it may not be the vitamins, it may not even be some of the things they think it is, or even clinicians think it is. Like they're just taking up 9 times more energy because of the state that they're in. And it reminds me of something Steve Jobs shared, and I kind of apply it to health as well, is that the difference between two phones, right? So let's take a Samsung phone and an iPhone. The hardware is not that much different, right? So the camera isn't that much better. Maybe one is like 5 or 10% better, right? I mean, people have to analyze the individual pixels to be able to tell the difference these days. So when it comes to hardware, you can't be that much better. So he uses taxi cabs as an analogy. He says the best cab driver and an average cab driver might get you there 30% faster. Okay. Whereas if you think of the software industry, which is the mental game that we play, right? So let's think of our body as hardware. So, you might be able to run, just a little bit faster, right? Or you are a little bit slower than the world's fastest person. He might be able to run 100 meters in 10 seconds. You sub 10 seconds, you might run it in 12 or 13, right? And there's only so much faster that you can get and he can get. But the software is where we can have 1,000 or 1,000,000 times greater output and improvement because software has an unlimited capacity. So when we start working on our emotional, mental, spiritual health, that's where we can make the biggest leaps and bounds in our transformation because our physical body can only transform so much. It's finite, whereas our mental health is infinite. And that goes both ways, right? Our mental health could deteriorate in the negative direction, or it could, obviously be developed in more of the positive direction.
And there are so many things that derail us from that, right? So many things that do impact the software. I love that analogy. It's so easy. It's so like, yeah, everyone understands that. And it's there's so many things that do distract us. And yet, if we take a moment and shed some awareness onto like what we're currently doing, it's a little scary. And I think I had that realization, oh, I don't know, with business probably a year ago, where, a trusted colleague said, dude, what's going on? What are you doing? What's happening? And like very sheepishly, I'm like, I don't know what to do. I'm totally lost. And he said, man, he's like, you've got this. How did he share it? Like when you're thinking of the software there, he's like, you have everything that you need there to do whatever you want. Yet there's like this cloud that you can't get out of. And I'm like, duh, like, of course. And he's like, no, 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 no. He's like, you say that, but what are you doing to actually get out of that cloud?
Mm.
I hear you use words like, I don't know, and I'm not sure, and I'll think about it. He's like, that's not action. He's like, you're letting this stuff just whirl around in your head and you're not moving forward with it. You're not reading the signs of everything. And I was kind of like pissed, honestly. But at the
Mm.
same time, it was thank goodness for seeing my BS. Like, thank you for just cutting right through it and telling me, dude, this is your creation. No one else has done it. You're doing this based on your lifestyle. You want to keep sticking your head in the sand, or do you actually want to take control of where you're at? And I'm like, yeah, what do I need to do? Like, I said, I don't know how to do this. I don't see this. And this led me down a path which has been beautiful the past year. Um, so yeah, we'll just dive into this. He said, you need to go see a friend of mine, and we'll just leave it at that. And he has a place where you can do some plant medicine. And at first I'm like, what is that? Like I honestly had no clue. I'm so sheltered in terms of a lot of this stuff. I'm like, I don't even know what you mean by that. He's like, you just need to go see this person, go talk to him, and I think it can help you out. And so naively, I went, and probably the most profound experience of my life.
Mm.
Because for the first time, so let me back up a little bit on this. This sets kind of the stage of why. I feel like for the majority of my life, because of religion, right? And I have no problems with what people's faith are. Christian, not Christian, I'm Christian. But with the upbringing that I had, there was a lot of emphasis on like being perfect. I'm not necessarily a perfectionist, although I am starting to see where these tendencies show up. And like, wow, I didn't really even realize that about myself. But always put myself in a one down position of I'm not enough. I'll never be enough. And I can never do enough to get there, to get wherever that is.
Mm.
And and those that I've shared that with, they're like, dude, like what's wrong with you? And some people, when it's not safe, they're like, yeah, but you're amazing. You can, I'm like, I don't see it. You do, great. I don't.
Mm.
And it again, it goes back to that safe space. Can someone hold space and tension or not? And I think this has been some of the challenge where when I have truly just unpacked what's going on, it's, yeah, but you're fine. Just, and in religion, it was just have more faith or just, read this more. And I did. And I tried. And like it was very painful at times. And I'd feel like I was on the right track. And yet, from many perspectives, I still felt like I was failing in life, failing family, failing. I mean, my health failed in my early 30s and fixed that beautifully with the help of people. But the mental aspect has been so much more oppressive than the physical. Like, dude, I can do the physical. Give me a Spartan race, give me an endurance race, I'll push through. But the mental aspect of that, I think I just ran from because I thought, if I'm never going to be enough, I mean, it was never like stop trying, but I was just always chasing the horizon, never getting there, thinking that if I ran hard enough, fast enough, that I'd get there. But it wasn't happening. And so, with all of that, good friend is like, you need to see somebody. And here's where I would go. And I did, and started down this journey of plant medicine. And I honestly, like naively, I didn't even know people are going to think, dude, you're a moron. I didn't even know what I was taking, honestly. But I had trust, 100% trust in who I was with. Um, so that certainty was there. And for the first time in my life, I was able to start separating God from religion. And it was painful. Like, I don't think I've ever felt that much sorrow and grief and uncertainty. And at the same time, as I allowed myself and was being guided through this, and as I allowed myself to kind of keep going instead of like everything in me wanted to run. I'm like, I just want to run. I want to escape. But I didn't. I stayed there because in my heart, I'm like, no, you have to work through this. If you don't work through this, you're going to keep repeating the same shit over and over and over. Sorry. And so I stayed, and it felt like there were things that were holding me bound to the table that I was on, like literally physically binding me. And I even told him, I'm like, I'm holding on like so tight. Anyway, I went through this, and it became the beginning of like freedom, of where that separation from the religious scrupulosity to all there ever was love. All you need to focus on is love. And if you do that, then you're right. And and so since that time, I've continued on those journeys and being able to unpack that fear. And one of the beautiful things about the plant medicine is that it does lower that fear threshold. And for me to move through a lot of this stuff that I buried for decades, right? And some of it I didn't even know it was there until it started surfacing. Business shows you a lot, right? When you're in business, it's a spiritual game and it shows
Oh
you a
yeah.
lot about yourself. Some of it you like, some of it you don't. And it revealed to me a lot about myself. And you know what's interesting is I went to this facility and did this journey not because of religion, not because of my a belief or a lack of belief in God. It was, how can I be successful in business? And
Mm.
what is even success? Like, what does that even mean? And what it unpacked every time, every journey that I've done, it's getting me closer to me and recognizing that you never had to fix anything. There was always divinity there in the first place. You just didn't see it because of, again, all the shit that had
Yeah.
piled up and that you had allowed, thrust upon. I don't know what word it is, but over the past year, like it's been a beautiful experience to start to really tap into, gosh, this is who Randy is. Nice
Mm.
to meet you. And I get to keep meeting him every day in different ways that I show up. And it's really beautiful. And to have, again, people in my life that help to hold that space and tension and allow me to process through that. My wife is a saint for helping me process through this and becoming safer, where, there were times I didn't want to share things because I didn't know what was going to happen. How can I even hold your emotion if I can't even hold my own? And and to see where my health has gone in the past year, like I thought my health was good, which by all means it was, but man, it's like accelerated as I've been able to release this stuff. And it's been beautiful. It's been
Mm.
incredible. And to the point where eventually that's where I'd like to go in practice. But it's still evolving, which is awesome. So practice is still evolving. And as I work with people, I feel like there's more openness. There's more ability to hold that space and not feel like I have to fix you. If I didn't have to fix myself, if there was nothing to fix but just mirror, reflect, see there, then there's nothing to fix in you either. And you just need a mirror to actually reflect and to hold that tension and allow you to see the beauty within. And yeah, there's guidance, there can be supplements, there's stuff, toxicity, but without this component, do we really heal?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I think it's impossible, right?
Yeah.
I think we can certainly heal physically, right? And that's some, you know,
To a
and
point. I mean, to
the,
a point.
yeah, well, that's what I was going to get to, right? So I think that somebody else can help us heal physically, right? Whether it's the chiropractic adjustment you got, for example,
Yep.
right? Or whether it's somebody identifying some of the, 3D root causes of your health concerns. But when we're in this other dimension of thought, vibration, and mindset, and our past, and our lineage, that's a different conversation, but also a different level of healing takes place.
Yeah.
And in some of my plant medicine journeys, the visual that I got was that when we're born, we're like this golden idol, this beautiful golden statue. And then we get a name, right? So there's an identity tied up in that, right? Somebody names us. And, it's really funny. I met a gentleman in my Costa Rica ayahuasca journey. His name was Jarende, which I thought was a cool name. I'm like, wow, what does your name mean? He's like, I don't know. My mom named me after her first boyfriend.
Oh man.
so so I say that because there's an energy attached to that,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? Like to
Yeah.
that name, there's emotion attached to it. It's a word you hear the most over and over again. And his mom probably said his name so many times. And every time she would say his name, it's bringing up that old energy, right? Of her first boyfriend. Maybe that's a good thing. I don't know. But at the same time, it's like that energy is being attached to him. So our name has energy to it, right? And then you're told, oh, Randy's so cute, or Randy's so this, or Randy's so that. And then it's like putting on all these layers,
Mhm.
and you could see it as spray paint, layers of spray paint that develop our identity, or could be, I like to use an analogy of shirts, right? So every time a new story is told about you that isn't true, you put on another shirt, and every time a story is told about you that is true, you take it off, right? So in these journeys, we get to see the true us, or when we look in the mirror, or when somebody reflects back to us, the essence of who we are, we can see that and take those layers off. But I'm 47, and by the time you're 47, you're wearing like 100 shirts, and you're like, you really don't know who you are, and you feel stiff and you can't move because you've got all these shirts on.
Yeah.
And so as you start stripping all of that away, for some people they're going to be able to rip the whole thing open and take it all off, but for some people it's going to be shirt by shirt. You have to unpack it, and depending on how many shirts you have on, you're going to have to process all those stories. A question I have for you that might be helpful for our listeners is maybe compare and contrast some of your behaviors or self-care practices before doing the work, and perhaps what it looks like now. I think that would be insightful for people.
I think you're right. I love that question. And it's funny. I commented to my wife on something that I did this morning, and she's like, yeah, like who even are you anymore? And it'll make sense when I share this with you. So my mornings used to look like waking up at 5 a.m. and I would go to CrossFit and do HIIT workouts. And even if I wasn't going to a facility, I have a gym in my garage. And if I didn't get up, like it was beating myself up the entire day. Like, I can't believe you didn't get up. You're, loser or whatever. You're gonna have to do it now tonight because that's the only way to whatever, gain value in myself, right? And really what I identified was that provided certainty. I knew how I would feel from the workout. And so starting the day off with that certainty was beneficial for a time, but then it became a distraction.
Hmm.
And what I didn't pay attention to were the injuries that were mounting up. So I was training at one point for a 50K Spartan race, which is, it's not just 50K, but it's 70 obstacles. And those are not easy obstacles. You're carrying heavy stuff, you're doing a lot of overhead stuff. And I kept on getting injured and I kept on trying to just push. If I work out harder, if I work out more, then I'll be strong enough and I'll work through these injuries. Yeah, that didn't work. Same thing with my mind. If I just work more, if I just work harder, then it'll be better. But that trying to work harder was driving me crazy, and I was looking for more ways to escape. Social media, other stuff, right? And then now you're kind of pissed because you just wasted an hour. Now, after I have engaged in the plant medicine, I engaged in human design chart, which realized that that design that I have as a self-projecting projector, rest is like essential. Rest is a must. It's non-negotiable, which I fought against. I'm like, whatever. I'm the guy that pushes through everything and does Spartan races. That's my identity. And it's like, ooh, What is that telling you? Time to change that identity. And so then last year I got this Achilles injury, which guess what? You can't run when you have an Achilles injury. You can't do a
Mm,
lot of workout with that. And I still fought for that for about 6 months until the last 3 months, where it's like, you have to rest. You have to stop, or else your body is going to stop you. And so now my mornings look so different. It's like delightful. I wake up around 6:20. I go outside, I get on my vibe plate, I do some lymphatic work on there. I do some balance work for my Achilles and my ankle, which there was that disconnect. And then I go upstairs and I breathe and I meditate and I turn on things like Joe Dispenza, or I turn on other things on my Gaia app and sit for 10 minutes to a half hour. If I have more time, like on a Sunday, I may be there for an hour and a half, and I will just do that. And you may be thinking, I don't have an hour and a half. It didn't start like that. It started with 5 minutes. Can I do 5 minutes of this? And I found that, wow, this is really soothing. Like my soul, my brain is wanting this.
mm,
And I can't tell you like how I knew that. I was just more drawn to it. And so this morning, it was really funny. Woke up, did this routine, came down and said something to my wife about, man, I love just being able to sit up there and just meditate and not push so hard. And and I said, oh, and I was doing blood work today. This is funny. I was doing blood work and I said, I decided it wouldn't be a good idea to work out before blood work. And I said, how things have changed. And she's like, yeah, like who are you? And it was so funny because it was a joking comment, but at the same, the love and the recognition of how I'm transitioning was fully felt there. I gave her a hug and just told her thank you for holding that space for me, for putting up with a lot of the stuff, with shaking your head like I can't believe he's going to go out and work out again or do this again when his body's not even healed. And it's just this, it's this belief now that I don't have to do that. It and it came because of a fear of what if I don't? What if
right.
I don't do this? What will people think? And you may say like, well, that's crazy. Why do you care what other people think? I think that's where a lot of our fear comes from. What will others think? That patterning, conditioning, and that's been my story. And so as I've been able to release that and continue to work on releasing that, I really like rest.
Mm,
It's beautiful. Like after this conversation, I'm going to go out and take a walk and rest because even the communication, the pouring out like from my heart of what I'm sharing, for me, that's energy. And though I love sharing that, I recognize that no, I need at least 5 or 10 minutes to just walk, to be, to let things process and then come back. And I still fight with that sometimes. Like I still do. My dad was a Marine. I still like have that in my blood of you gotta do and go. And it's like, but do you really? Is life gonna end if I don't do that? Am I less than if I don't push harder? No. And I'll probably get a lot more done and have a much better perspective, life, vibrational state if I actually listen and rest. So those are a long way of saying so different. And I really love rest. It's
mm.
amazing.
Yeah, it's so fascinating that you share this, and I could see where that go 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 comes from once you said your dad was a Marine, because that's what his conditioning was, right? And
Yeah.
in a survival type of situation, yeah, you got to go go go. Like you can't be resting when the enemy's attacking or whatever the case may be if you're on a mission. But we don't have to live our whole life that way. And there is a time for rest and there is a time for go and balancing the yin and the yang. And I think like for most people, they're just yang dominant, right? It's just go, go, go dominant. And they don't necessarily focus so much on recovery. That's one of the things that we see a lot of. I just had a consultation with a client who's going to be joining our program, and she's type A, she's go, go, go. And like, I already know what her issue is. It's not that she isn't working out enough. It isn't that she isn't eating healthy enough. It is that she isn't recovering enough.
Mhm.
And for a lot of people, that's the missing link because they think they have to go harder or diet harder or work out harder or that it has to even be hard. That's the first misconception is that it
Right.
has to be hard. And I have to remind people that if we do this right, it's going to be, change, right? We might adjust and modify what you're eating, but we're not changing you. We're helping you remember who you are. And when you remember who you are, then the decision making becomes so much easier and there's less emotion attached to it, right? When the golden path is laid out in front of you and you can see it, there's less emotion. But if there's no path, there's confusion and fear and frustration and a lot of emotion because you just don't know what the right direction is. So I feel like, this conversation is so fruitful for people who are tuned in who might be, feeling like they've tried everything but really going inwards and working on ourselves. The essence of who we are is probably the most important work that we'll do, certainly more powerful than any lab test or supplement or, panel or something like that you might buy that's external to you. I think if people started there, every clinician would get way better outcomes. But it's hard to have that conversation sometimes. And, you've spoken quite a bit about how your wife has been really supportive. I'd love for you to share what people can do, or if there's any resistance that people have uh, in relationship to their spouse not being supportive, or perhaps not even knowing how to support the transformation. Because when you marry someone or when you're with somebody in a partnership, you kind of marry the version of them that you think they are, but there
Mhm.
might be a delta between who you think they are and who they actually are. Um, and so I'm curious, if you encounter any challenges related to, life partners or spouses when it comes to doing this work, or do you find that most spouses are on board with the transformation process?
I love that question, and it's there's so many layers to that. My wife, so we've been engaged on the same journey in different avenues. Mine was business that's helped reflect me. Hers truly was our religion, what faith we were, and the challenges that she had with that. And there have been times in life where we've given each other the silent treatment. We didn't know any better. We were doing what we like the best we could with what we had at the time. And and yet there was still this love for each other that we want to be together. We don't know like actually how to communicate. Very immature. Um, and and this has been like a lot of our married life, this immaturity of not communicating. And I think that things happen in life where you get to choose, am I here or am I not? And that did come. This point did come where it was like, okay, it's actually a choice. Like, are we staying or are we not? And it's, man, that is like one of the scariest decisions ever, especially when you have kids. You've been together for 20 plus years. And and so the recognition came out of necessity where she began pulling away from church. And I had listened to enough things to know, okay, she needs space. Give her space. Eventually she'll come back, right? Eventually she'll be fixed, right? And it'll be fine. So I guess what I'm saying is giving space, recognizing that we're each on a journey. We think we know our kids, we think we know our spouse, but I think we only know like the very tip of it because how much do we actually communicate with each other? How open, how available are we to hold that space and tension without judgment, without trying to fix it, without worrying about, well, what is she going to think if I share this thing? And it really like was this point where for her, I'm not going to church anymore. I can't. And I physically saw the impact that had on her. And I hope this is answering your question. I think this is part of it because it's not just an easy answer, but it was allowing that space and then recognizing, oh my gosh, we're on the same pattern. We're on the same path. You're experiencing this change and transformation via religion. I'm experiencing this change and transformation because of business. And what ultimately I think has saved us was doing this inner work and holding, learning to hold the space, learning to share and to recognize that, hey, I want this to work. I don't know how, but can we do it together? And it's going to look messy. And there's probably going to be times when I screw up, and you do too. But can we work on this together? And and that's been an amazing continual conversation. And now we're more open to that. It's still challenging, but I think the communication, right? Getting rid of this damn thing and not having that as what you look at before you go to bed and at the dinner table is so important because we're not communicating with those. Yeah, you may be hearing it, but we're not listening. And so I think listening and allowing space, reflecting, and there's no, like, again, there's not like a right way to do this or a wrong way, but I think maybe to answer your question, I think knowing that there was actually a choice, that I get to choose to be in this relationship or not, and she gets to choose the same thing. And when you realize that there's actually a choice, and if there's one choice, there are two. If there's two, there's three. And then you can actually decide, okay, what do I want? It's not one or the other. And recognizing that choice took a lot of pressure away, where it's okay, what do I choose? And now I get to communicate that with her and she with me. And how are we going to work through this? And, her journey on, I started with the plant medicine. And then she's like, I want to do this too because I got stuff to unpack. And so it's really been a beautiful journey together in this space. And we're so more aligned now than we ever have been. So we'll be married 25 years in December, and we are more aligned this past year, the past 6 months, than we have ever been aligned. And everything is better. Our communication, intimacy, our fun time with each other, the way that we parent our kids. Again, it still looks messy, but everything is better.
So it's trending in the right direction, which is the most important
Absolutely.
thing, right? Um, Tell me a case study, if you can, about a client, perhaps somebody who came in to see you, what they were
Mm.
struggling with, and then how going through this process of, the reset program, but also the emotional components. Uh, what does their life look like now?
So really cool because we just had this conversation last Friday in our group with a couple women. I won't share my wife's because that's hers, but another lady's really neat, very one in control, Italian, New York, um, and busy life, right? Busy mom taking her kid to travel baseball, traveling all over the place. New York City traffic is atrocious,
Hmm.
um, and really uncertain. Is this going to work? Oh my gosh, I'm Italian. I can't have bread and I can't have pasta. What about fats? You're going to take all that away from me? And, uh, and she's like, but I know I have to do something. And so she engaged in the program. And on our calls, it was so fun because it was never, she knew what to do. It was again mirroring and reflecting. Here's what I hear you saying. Here's maybe this guidance I can offer. And she started to lose some weight and then gained a little bit and then lost some. And on our conversation, after one of our conversations, she's like, you know what? I know what I'm doing is shifting my health in the right way. My feet that have hurt for decades when I get out of bed, not decades, that's too much, probably the past 10 years, they don't hurt anymore. She's like, the bottoms of my feet don't hurt. It's amazing. I can get up, I can walk around. I don't have to put on these god-awful slippers and like tiptoe around the house. She's like, I can walk. And she said, my brain fog, the things that I'm getting done from a mental aspect are amazing. I cleaned my house and had energy to spare and was engaged with my son in homeschooling. And so all these things are happening. And then when we had this, I think it was maybe our second or third visit, she's like, and what I've come to the realization of if I don't lose the weight that I had hoped to, I know that there are so many other things that are getting better. My
Mm.
clothes fit better, my vision is better, my brain capacity is more clear. Again, her feet didn't hurt, her joint pain was less, her body aches were way better, less bloating. So all these things, she's like, if the weight doesn't come off, that's fine because this has been life-changing. So she's like, I'm just letting go of the expectation. And then lo and behold, what happens? Her body starts to release more. And then what she began to realize is, wow, I'm holding on so tight. I'm worried about if I lose this weight, what if I gain it all back? And she's like, I didn't realize how tight I was holding on to this fear. And I said, so what do you need to do with that? And she's like, well, I've just got to let it go and trust that my body knows like what it's doing and that this program is guiding me. And I feel like that it's helped me. I said, exactly. So what does that look like? And she began to share a few things of what she was going to do to let go. And now she is, I think this is her last week. So she's week 10. She finishes this week and she's down almost 20 pounds from where she
Wow.
started. And again, as you've said on different webinars, if that was all that changed, wouldn't have been a success. It's the other things and the mindset and just the ability for her to see, I can let go. I can let go of the expectation and I can appreciate what's happening. And that has made all the difference. And the women in the group were like, oh my gosh, you've made so much progress because they knew where she was in the beginning in terms of like holding on so tight. And they're like, they just started clapping for her. Like, no applause, like was, hey, give her a clap. They were just so excited for her. And it's just been ecstatic. So that's one of many. And that's really an example of what the women in the program that I'm working with, what they're experiencing. Hers, because Italian, loud voice, it was just heard more through our group. But it's incredible to see the change.
I love that. It's so wonderful to see that people who hold on the tightest when they let go, what's possible for them.
Yeah.
And you bring up a really good point, which is a fear of gaining the weight back. So for some people, they're so afraid of failure that they will live in failure,
Mhm.
right? So it's one thing to lose the weight, but then to gain it back, they feel like they failed. But if they just don't do anything, that's what failing is. And then one thing that we encourage our clients to do is to get rid of the clothes. So once the clothes are too big for you, get rid of them.
Yep.
Because if you keep them in your closet, then your brain will find a way to wear that favorite top of yours again. So get rid of it, buy some new clothes to adopt the new identity. And it's always fun to shop for new clothes, especially when they feel good when you wear them again. So I would say that
100%.
that's or you don't have to give your clothes away. You could get them tailored, but just make sure they don't fit the old you. Right.
Right.
We don't want those ghosts in our closet anymore. We want to get rid of that old energy.
100%. I mean, those are patterns, right? You see it there and how quickly our brain can go back into old patterns. So yeah, let's get rid of the pattern, get rid of the physical representation of that. And then I love that it really helps change identity because you do develop a new identity around who you are. And it's just part of what happens through the reset program. It's beautiful.
Yeah, we covered a lot of stuff, and the theme that's coming away for me, if I had to encapsulate what we discussed, is what would love do? And if
Mhm.
we lead with that, what would love do? What would it look like if I love myself fully? What type of decision would I make in this circumstance or in this situation? How would I respond if I love the person I'm communicating with fully? And if we just lead with that, profound shifts can take place instantaneously for us. However, when we start also unpacking what's going on below the surface, then at an unconscious level, that's where the real transformation starts to take place. And as we stated earlier, it's not about changing who we are, it's truly understanding and perhaps remembering who we are. Because at one point, we knew who we were. And then all these stories, identities, situations, circumstances pop up in our life that kind of bounce us around and shape us into who we think we are today. And for many people who are coming to you or coming to us, they're trying to change that, right? How they show up in our offices physically or online in our consultations physically is a very, very um, close reflection of what's going on up here, right? Not all of it. We understand things happen, but the majority of it, of what your life circumstances are, is really based on what's going on up here. So to change it, we don't need to change the result. We need to change the root and work on that. So I love that this is an area that you have been working on for quite some time, but it's really showing up in your practice. I love that you're doing the plant medicine to go deeper and really get to the essence of who you are. It's been beautiful for me to witness the transformation as well. And so keep doing it. It's serving you certainly, and I'm sure your family, and of course your clients and patients. And I know that you're just like me. You want to have a much bigger impact, and you want to help a lot of people. And in order for us to do that, we really have to work on ourselves. So thank you for being a beacon of light for even people like myself. I feel so motivated and inspired by this conversation that I know there's more that I can do to take care of myself. So thank you for giving all of us permission to do that. Even those of us that feel like we have to go, go, go to get results, sometimes it's no, 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 and doing what feels good because you are being productive in a different way, right? Productivity doesn't necessarily mean moving our bodies, right? Productivity could be moving mountains in our head, right? And really cultivating our capacity to be able to focus and think and to um, emphasize the things in our thoughts that we want more of instead of living in a state of fear. So I learned a lot today. Thank you for doing this interview, and thank you for kind of sharing your journey. I know some of it was very personal, and I think it's maybe one of the first times you're even talking about this publicly. So I appreciate the opportunity to witness the unpacking of it.
Well, you're welcome. And thank you for the space. And thank you for again, the ability to hold that and to, allow that to just come out organically and authentically. And it's just, again, I love who you are. I love your heart. And it's very easy it's very aligned. So,
Thank you,
yeah.
brother. I appreciate that. How
Yep.
can people learn more about you, your practice? How can they connect with you if they want to come in for a visit or work with you over the internet? What are
Yeah,
the
so
ways
a
they can?
couple ways. Our clinic is totalbodywellnessclinic.com. That's how you can find us. I'm doing more on social media, so I have a Facebook group called Empower Act Heal that you can look at. I'm in there almost weekly, teaching, and then I have a podcast called Restore the Real. And that's another great way to connect. Different interviews, me, but those are probably the best ways. Instagram as well, but I would say Facebook, our website, or the podcast are the best ways to find me.
Amazing. And we'll put everything below this video in the show notes so you can access it. And once again, Dr. Randy, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I love you, my brother.
Love
Great
you
to have you
too.
here. Thank you for your time today.
You're welcome. Thank you, Sachin.